What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel and to another Outriders video. Yesterday I released a video specifically looking at the Technomancer and building the Technomancer with only tier 1 and tier 2 mods, and basically creating a platform for yourself to very comfortably farm CT15s and start, stocking up on drop pod resources and mods. Now, it only makes sense to come full circle and to close the loop and bring to you essentially what I consider to be the golden standard when it comes to Firepower Technomancer. And so I'd like you to join me as I discuss each of the mods that basically put this together. We look at how it plays and essentially what makes this class tick and why it is such a very powerful class to basically take into endgame, to carry people with, and why it is so easy to play it. Now, if you do enjoy this video, you find it useful in any way, please do consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel, maybe sharing the video with a buddy. It really does help the channel grow, and it just means a whole lot to me. But without any further ado, let's jump right in. While we have some footage playing in the background showcasing this build and how it shreds small enemies to elites alike, it's important to touch on the reasons why this class probably performs as well as it does, at least according to me. First and foremost would probably be the mods used in this class, and the fact that the majority of the damage dealing mods that make this class so OP comes from the tier 2 sort of stock, if I can put it that way. What that means is that you will be farming out most of these mods already just by default, just by playing the game, even with other characters, and those will already be available in your mod bank when you start building this. Sure, most of the mods that really push this build over the top are in the tier 3, and we'll of course be looking at them as well, but as shown in the video yesterday, you can build a very competent version of this build with just tier 1 and tier 2 mods, and then start cherry picking and replacing some of them with tier 3, which basically elevates this to god level. The second thing I think that makes this build work as well as it does is its simplicity of play. While the game of course revolves around gunplay and skills use in most of the classes, and the idea being that you become really powerful when you learn how to do combat both with a weapon and getting buffs from that, for instance, and then using abilities based on those buffs, but it's this sort of ebb and flow between abilities and gunplay, where the Technomancer goes completely against that in a way. Yeah, you do have to activate blighted rounds, of course, to use the ability, but once you switch on blighted rounds and you have a proper reload mechanic going, then it doesn't really matter what other skills you have. That does 95% of the work. You can get cute and throw out turrets, which boost up your damage a little bit. You can throw out a grenade, which boosts up your damage a little bit. You can cold snap and freeze stuff in place and shoot them and explode them and push up your damage a little bit. But the bottom line is, by default, you're going to be pushing out more than enough damage to kill everything ridiculously fast. And the fact of the matter is, it is so brutal when you play on solo level that by the time you start carrying 2-3 people, well, you'll never carry 3 unless you carry yourself, but by the time it's you and 2 other players, you'll find that you're very, very capable of carrying the 2 other players, even if they're severely undergeared and maybe not even level 30 already, which I regularly do on my streams. Shh, nobody mentioned anything about me dying. But in any case, the other thing that I just want to mention about this class that I really do enjoy, and even though I would consider myself a pyro main, this would be my second favorite, very, very close second favorite, is the fact that it's this high risk glass cannon way in which I play this class. I do know that some other people might build this slightly different and might diversify a little bit more into defensive abilities, or rather mods. I don't play it that way, and I really try to push as much damage as possible with this, so I don't have a problem with my health dipping into the red and kind of like living in the danger zone, because that's how I sort of derive pleasure from playing this class. Now, once you play in groups, you can start playing like back, and you can start playing like sniper archetype, or like like a support role. In other words, that other people are out in front essentially pulling aggro, even though there's no aggro in this game, and you can just basically lay waste to stuff from the back. So if any of that sounds appealing to you and you haven't tried this class yet and you're liking what you're seeing in the background playing there, then let's go ahead and look at the detail and see how it all comes together. Now, when it comes to weapons, of course, what you're looking for when it comes to bullet Technomancer is you want a tactical rifle in the assault rifle class. By default, these weapons just outshine anything else in terms of the amount of damage that they can push out, And it kind of works really well with just the damage stacking that you're doing with this class, because you'll often find that due to the fact that the tactical rifle shoots out these bursts, you can start to learn how to play the class and essentially know, okay, that's going to need a 2 burst, that's going to need a 3 burst. And once you start thinking that way, it makes bullet management and never losing bullets all that much, more satisfying to get good at, but also to manage from a perspective of understanding when you have a risk of losing bullets and you have to switch targets or anything like that. Now, what I have here right now is, of course, the Earthborn Renegade, which right at the start of the game was a way for you to get essentially a broken, very good assault rifle from the tactical variant. And in many ways, it is perfect because it rolled with bone shrapnel, and then you could replace that with anything else. So in my case here, I'm using Dark Sacrifice. You could, of course, use Killing Spree or something like that as well. But the point is, again, Dark Sacrifice just accentuates your weapon damage so much by 75% straight off the bat. And the only penalty you really have is a life drain that's active as long as you're in combat, which you can easily offset with the amount of damage that you're pushing out, because, of course, the Technomancer's healing mechanic is based on a small percentage of the damage that you push out. No matter what damage it is, you get back as life. So it kind of like feeds lovely into each other. The reason why why Bone Shrapnel and Dark Sacrifice together make good sense, and I said the same thing yesterday, is for me it makes sense to have a weapon that deals a little bit of extra damage to the target that you're shooting at, but then also is able to deal some damage to the stuff around the target. So stuff like anomaly blades, everything like that, that's all good stuff here. I personally, I'm a huge fan of Bone Shrapnel because it's just so OP and it's on a 1-second cooldown, which is just is great. So that combined with Dark Sacrifice works really well. But let's say, and one thing I wanted to mention is that even as good as this rifle is, it's not what many would consider a perfect roll, because you have one wasted substat on here, which is status power. If you want the best of the best of the best of the best, you want something like this. So you want a tactical rifle that has crit damage, long range damage, and close range damage. It's not that status power is fully wasted. Yes, if you're using freezing turret and stuff like that, it'll make the freeze last a little bit longer. This will make your poison ticks, your toxic ticks from blighted rounds also last a little bit longer. So, I mean, it's not really all that wasted. And the difference between this and this is marginal at best. But I mean, if somebody is like a full-on min-maxer and wants to get the best of the best, of course, this is what you're looking for, something like that. In any case, your secondary weapon and your pistol make no difference whatsoever as long as they're just level 50 items, because the point is you're using blighted rounds, so you're never going to be switching off that in any case, because otherwise you lose your bullets. So your primary weapon is the most important, and that's the one you want to go with. And when we get to the actual gear itself, again, the simplicity of gearing up a Technomancer is seen here, because you don't have to have any legendary pieces in there, although you do need some mods from legendary pieces. But the point is that you can go 5 pieces purple as long as you're stacking bonus firepower, close range damage, and long range damage. The substats, that's what you're looking for. So then I have Radical Therapy and Bloodlust on here. Both of those are DPS mods. One increases my damage towards toxic or stuff that has toxic on, which you automatically cause with blighted rounds. And Bloodlust is a ramp up mechanic, which says that when I kill stuff, when I put killing shots into stuff, then my firepower stacks up, and this is a stacking effect. So that's a ramp on your damage already. When we go to the chest, we have Sharp Eye. Sharp Eye is like the brother mod to Bloodlust. They both work essentially the same way. The activation of them is just different. Sharp Eye, you need to be killing stuff aiming down sight, and that will actually increase your damage. Now, the second mod that I have on here is Crit Stack. You'll be doing a lot of damage if you're just body shotting stuff, but where this build really shines is if you start hitting things in the head or in their crit spot. And when you do that, that's where Crit Stack comes in, because this is then further on going to ramp up your firepower, and this also stacks. So after you drop the first 2 or 3 enemies with headshots, you're going to see a dramatic increase in the amount of damage that you can push out. One of the things that I really like about this build as well, or this character, is that you kind of do have to, practice your aim and get good at it. Yeah, you can body shot stuff all day and you'll do tons of damage, but when you'll really be pulling off these sick, like one taps on a Perforo or one taps on a Captain or something like that, is when you have your full ramp on and you hit all 3 of your burst bullets, for instance, in the head, and you're doing 1.7, 1.7, 1.7 million, something like that. So when we go over to the pants, I use Critical Analysis on here, which increases your critical damage by 15%. Again, just further on accentuating that, you know, hitting stuff in the critical spot. This is of course a lot easier with humanoid enemies. Sometimes with the monsters it's a little bit difficult. A question that I've gotten is, you know, where exactly do you shoot a brood mother? Where do you shoot a behemoth? The answer of course being brood mother is kind of like under the arm, and behemoth is actually, you can go for head there, but this makes it a little bit more difficult to sometimes hit head. But nonetheless, once you start playing the game, you'll know where the critical you know, parts or pieces are. Euthanizer is the brother mod to, or the better version of radical therapy, but you can put both of them on your gear because they stack on top of each other. So this deals another 25% damage to stuff that's affected by toxic. And what you also have to remember is blighted rounds, how it works is you're not just applying toxic to the thing that you're shooting at. Blighted rounds, and let's quickly pop over to the skills and you'll understand what I'm saying, is blighted rounds, enemies within a small radius of the main target get toxic. So you're actually stacking that toxic onto stuff around that target as well, which means that by the time you kill the thing that you're shooting at and you switch over to the next target, that thing's already going to be poisoned. That thing's already going to have toxic on it. So you'll immediately have that additional damage on it, which again is just why this is such a sick combination and works so well. So that's those handled. Then when we move over to the gloves, on here I use Captain Hunter. You will one burst any piece of trash in this game. Like anything that's just like a normal mob enemy doesn't take more than one burst to kill. But Captain Hunter is going to make you do that to most elites and stuff as well, where usually if one burst isn't enough, the second burst seals the deal, especially if you're hitting headshots. Dum-dum bullets is increasing your assault rifle damage. Of course, this is a great thing because we're using an assault rifle, so why wouldn't we want that additional damage? And then lastly, we have the boots. Now this is where my build and the way that I've set this up shines in my opinion, because one of the mods on here is a free mod for you, and it depends on how you want to play this class. And I'm going to detail some options that you can use here, but the sky is the limit in terms of choice as to what you can use here to, you know, change to your style of play. Now firstly, let's just discuss Toxic Lead. That is the reload mechanism for this class. That is how you keep your blighted rounds up. You have 45 bullets in every tactical rifle mag up from an assault rifle. So as long as you're making sure that you're dropping stuff that have toxic on them, you'll get 40% of your mag back. That's ridiculous, because basically what this means is if you shoot out 3 bursts, you're going to burn 9 bullets. And on that third burst, you kill something, you essentially get your full clip back. So that is the reload mechanic. And now when we get to where I have shatter on here, that's the point really. Yeah, you can put anything in here. I experiment with this slot like all the time and goof around and see what I can put in here. But basically now what I have is I have shatter in here, which says I do 25% more damage against something that's frozen. And you might be thinking, but hold on, you're applying toxic to everything. Why does frozen factor into this? But let's quickly pop on over to the skills, and maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. So we have blighted turret on here, which causes toxic to stuff as well, but this is also one of our damage ramp up mechanics, which we're going to discuss when we get to the class tree. But I personally, I'm a big fan of cryo turret. I get shit for this all the time. People always telling me to use cold snap, use you know, shrapnel grenade, or scrapnel. I always say shrapnel, but scrapnel grenade, and because that gives you further on damage ramp potential, or, you know, hard CC. But one of the reasons why I like cryo turret, or turrets in general, is because they are a form of soft CC in this game, because a lot of the times, especially enemies that come in for melee, if you throw a turret in between you and them, they will go for the turret. While the game doesn't really have aggro tables, it does seem to be this thing where the enemies will be distracted by a turret and go for it. And one of the things that the cryo turret is of course very good at is freezing stuff. Now, most of the things we kill it with one burst, so cryo turret doesn't have a chance to apply frozen to it. But where I like where this comes in and why I use shatter is the enemies that do survive that first shot, the cryo turret's gonna freeze them. That means your follow-up shots on them is basically gonna kill it outright, because you're dealing this additional damage from cryo turret. But nonetheless, for example, you can still keep my shatter that I have in there, and you can switch to something like cold snap. And that means every time when you cold snap, all the stuff that's frozen, you're gonna deal a whole bunch of additional damage to. Blighted rounds, I don't have to explain, that's obvious why we put that in here. But let's quickly take just a quick little like a look into like our options here. So things that you can use instead of, for instance, shatter that I'm using in here. So if we go to the mod library here, of course, let's say for instance you're struggling with survivability and you're not quite used to playing this class, and so you are finding that you're getting pushed by enemies, you're getting killed. you can replace shatter with a defensive mod. Good examples of that would be something like damage absorber, which is a personal favorite of mine, mitigation from, and this is where I struggle, guys, so I always like sort of jump around and I never find the mod, but mitigation from death is also good. You're in any case going to be looking down the barrel and shooting at stuff, so you'll be just getting all this additional armor from that. Other options can also be, let's say for instance, if I've seen splash boost used a lot as well, where splash boost increases the splash effect of the toxic and just applies it to a bigger group of people or monsters for that matter. So that's of course an option as well. I've goofed around with using tainted blood, because as I shoot stuff with my bone shrapnel, which is on my gun, when bone shrapnel explodes, it causes everything around the thing that you made explode to bleed. So that's kind of like the same as the frozen effect, but instead you're just shooting the stuff that's bleeding, you know, a lot. So like I said, the sky's the limit. You can literally put anything in there. Rejuvenation is an option. Basically anything that makes sense and makes you feel as if you are surviving a little bit more damage. For that matter, if you're a cold snap guy and cold snap's your jam, then Icicle Storm, which is the mod that makes the Borealis chest so good, because when you do a cold snap and you shoot something and it does an AoE explosion, kills everything, you can put that in there if you want. As I said, it depends on exactly what you want to play and how you want to play it, and you can just slap whichever mod you want in there. So last but not least, let's go over to the class tree. I think this is the most straightforward thing. Any bullet build version of Technomancer uses top tree, of course, and kind of like uses this cookie cutter approach here. The only difference will be some guys will use marked for execution instead of blur screen, but generally speaking, this whole situation here looks all the same. Some random callouts here will be the fact that exposing toxin is good. Every time toxin or toxic is on something, they will be vulnerable as well. That makes them take additional damage, so that's good. The reason why some people pick up marked for execution is this increases the effect of the vulnerable on a mob by 40%, which is huge, which just makes them deal, take more damage. This is of course really good for team play as well, because when a mob is vulnerable, it's not just you that deals additional damage to it, it's your teammates as well. So that's fantastic. Something that I think that doesn't get discussed a lot, and which I sometimes fail to mention, is the importance of nitrogen capsules, these two mods here as well. Now, the how damage works with this, and you'll see this very clearly with the Technomancer, is you do a lot more damage when something's far away from you than when it's closer. And that's because a lot of the damage for this class is focused around the long range area. What nitrogen capsules does is there's this sort of like 6 meter dead zone or 8 meter dead zone between long distance and or between long range and close range. What nitrogen capsules does is it shrinks that distance and makes mobs which are closer to you still appear to be further away from you. As you can see, it decreased the distance considered to be long range, so it shrinks that gap. I hope I'm explaining it right. Of course, let me know in the comments below if I'm confusing you, but basically it just makes you get that long range benefit from a shorter distance, which is phenomenal, and also makes you deal more damage. Now make no mistake, you're still going to be dealing a lot of damage close range, but you'll often just find that it looks a lot more sexier the way that you're able to shoot and down stuff from long range. You do want to be picking up Assault Master because you want the additional assault rifle damage. And let's quickly discuss blur screen, or just mention why I think it's a good thing. The point is that I'm using Dark Sacrifice on this. How Dark Sacrifice works is as soon as you go into combat, Dark Sacrifice starts tanking your health, and it takes it down to the point of where your regen starts. Now every character's default regen starts at 30%. However, with blur screen, you increase your regen threshold to 50%. That means that even if you're in combat, you're not getting kills, Dark Sacrifice is never going to be able to take you down past 50%, because what's going to happen is Dark Sacrifice is going to take you into the regen bracket, and then your regen is going to pop you back out to 50. So that's going to be happening the whole time, and if without blur screen, you're going to be doing that at 30, which just, it's like a bigger chance of you getting one-shotted or something by like a heavy hit. So that extra 20% life there is just, sort of like a safety net that I like to operate in. Last but not least, or I guess the last three things we can quickly mention is two sides of power, which is again feeding into the whole glass cannon side. It means you take more damage, but you also push out more damage. We do have UT-14 clips in here. It's good because tactical rifles by default, without this mod, without this talent rather, they only have 30 bullets. So with this, you go up to 45 bullets, which just makes it more difficult for you to lose bullets, and thereby, you know, actually increases your DPS because you stay in blighted round mode longer, as long as you don't lose bullets. And then empowering antenna is the ramp up mechanic that I was talking about. So empowering antenna says that your weapon damage is increased by 40% for 10 seconds. And this is activated either when you activated blighted rounds, which you're going to do once, but then that you get that benefit once and then not again, as long as you stay within blighted rounds. But when you throw out blighted turret, it activates that buff as well. Now the cool thing about this is blighted turret is 7.7 seconds on the cooldown. So this means that as long as you're diligent in throwing out a blighted turret every time it comes off cooldown, you can essentially always have 40% additional damage, which is amazing. Now that's it for the build, guys. I try to make it as fast as possible, as quick as possible, but as you all know, I do love talking, especially about Outriders builds. But let me know in the comments down below if you're playing your Technomancer this way, if there's some mods that you would rather suggest me to do, if there's a different weapon that you're using. I do think there are a group of people that rather use LMGs because they have a bigger mag, so it's much easier to maintain bullets and not lose them. Plus then you get access to cool stuff like anomaly blades and, you know, things like that. So let me know if that's your flavor, if that's what you're using. But oh, two more things. One thing, please do remember to check out the description of this video. There's a Discord link there. If you want to jump into that Discord channel, that is where me and most of the players hang out. We have areas where you can group up with other players, get carries, play with other players, and just generally hang out with a bunch of cool people. So if that sounds awesome, then definitely go ahead and hit that link. The other thing I do also want to mention, which come to my attention that I think many people don't know, that I stream on YouTube on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, as well as Sunday nights, and you can check in my channel under the community tab. I stream at what would that be, CEST, so that's European time. I stream at 8 o'clock at night, and Thursday nights are dedicated nights for Outriders carries, Outriders with the community and things like that. So if that sounds like something fun, definitely come check us out. Even if you just come hang out, it doesn't have to be carries. You can come and carry me, and we can just hang out and play the game together that we all love so very much. But that's it. I promise I'm done. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it this far. And it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, a great afternoon, and a super awesome evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me.